How are we? We made it through the abounding flurries outside. Is everyone safe, sound, settled, warm, cozy? Brilliant. Welcome to Colleening 2025. My name's Misha on behalf of Antler River Poetry. We are thrilled to be hosting this annual tribute of Colleen Thibaudeau, and very grateful to the phenomenal lineup of readers and community members who will be sharing some of their favorite works by Colleen, and not just reading poetry, but also sharing stories and memories and associations and, various knowledge that contributes to our shared artistic heritage. So thanks very much, and thanks to all of you for making the trek. It means a lot. Before we dive in, I, as always, want to thank our sponsors and partners on this one, the London and Ontario Arts Councils, the City of London, the London Public Library, of course, and digib.net. I think this is our last event, Antler River Poetry event of 2025. Have I got that right? I really hope I have that right. Otherwise, I might be in trouble. But we return on January 21st with Therese Mason-Pierre and Nix Lewis-Schmidt. We have a lovely event. And for now, it's a total honor to be concluding this year's programming with this tribute to a Canadian literary icon. So let's get started. To set the stage, I want to welcome Antler River Poetry Committee member Roy Geiger to the stage. He has planned every detail of tonight with his signature thoroughness of care and thought. Roy, would you introduce us properly, please? And thank you.
Well, thank you, Misha. My first reaction was that sounded like a bit of buck passing, but I'm sure it wasn't intended that way. I guess I've ended up talking to you now because I'm fairly sure I'm one of the last people on the Antler River board who actually was lucky enough to meet Colleen Thibaudeau. And likely, like everyone who did meet her, I could chat on with little stories and anecdotes. But what I'd rather do tonight is celebrate her part in the regionalist movement in London, Ontario, which included many artists, her husband James Reaney among them, but well-known artists like Jack Chambers and Greg Curnow. And, it was such an important breakthrough, and it's one that I think we almost take for granted now. And so I'm lucky enough to have heard Colleen read a few times here in London. And the very first time I think I was in fourth year at Western in the old drama workshop in UC University College, and 10 Letters was hot off the press. Though it was a typically sized audience for a reading, and actually, it's kind of ironic to be saying this to you here today because I'm not even sure it was as large a group as we've got tonight. I remember thinking by the end, I was looking around and thinking, where the heck is everybody? Like all the people in my classes and all those professors, here we are. The thing we love and that we're studying is happening right in front of us. Wonderful writing about our place and about us from someone who happens to live just up the street. And I think what we're doing tonight is carrying on this understanding of the merit and importance of writing about right here, as everyone reading tonight continues to demonstrate. As we're about to hear, we're also drawn by Colleen Thibaudeau's distinct voice. She takes you into a world. She's fun, she's touching, and from the rich particularity of her poems, we learn the pleasure that comes not only from reading, but from rereading. I'm betting many of us here have read at least one of her poems and one of the poems that we're about to hear. And I'm also willing to bet that as we hear the poem again, we'll be struck by something new, something we hadn't thought of before. So with that, let's begin.
Thanks so much, Roy. You know, when you're the one that the buck's getting passed to, that's when passing the buck becomes the most responsible decision. I just want to put that out there, okay? And also, to all the readers, I just want to, I always forget to do this, and I'm starting now. Direct you to the water over here. Please feel free to get a glass of water beforehand. Wet your whistle, take your time, all right? Cool. First up, starting us off, is John Tyndall. John, how are you? Good. Good, let me introduce you. John lives in London, Ontario. His latest publications include Mangoes from the Seventh Dimension, first place winner of the 2023 Don Gutteridge Award from Wet Ink Books 2024. Yes, brilliant. And Listen to People from Hidden Brook Press 2020. Please welcome John to the stage.
Lumping along in my boots. I really wanted to just wear my shoes, but I walked here, so I couldn't do it. The poem I'm going to read by Colleen originally appeared in My Granddaughters Are Combing Out Their Long Hair, and then it was reprinted in the Artemisia book, and it's called Aroha's Fossil. And this poem has a connection to me in that I experienced one of the most memorable moments of my entire life because of this poem. I'll read it first. Aroha's Fossil. Aroha's fossil goes clear through the washing cycle, still in the pocket of her Wrangler jeans, and comes out deep-sea clean and pure as someone's eyes are seas who's fallen right through the world, straight through to China, as we used to say. Keel hauling, gutting, name it. Nothing of that shows. She says, "Hey, here's my fossil back," and warms it in her hand. I have a poem that I wrote because of her poem and what happened. I wrote it, I think, in 1991, so it would be about 14 years or so after the event. So the poem describes what happened. And if you need clarification, I can answer any questions. This is in which I copy Colleen's Aroha's Fossil and discover coincidence. Far away in time, near the tines of the Antler River, sheltering under the unsettled roof of Applegarth Follies, I type-wrote copies of poems for Applegarth's Folly number 3, an issue eagerly awaited, but never published. I tapped Aroha's Fossil, letter by letter, in roundelay rhythm, like Jean's legs strumming washboard. And after Colleen's words had arisen complete from paper and squid black ink, my hands, homing seabirds, flew to my faded shirt pocket, buttoned since last laundry day, and unbuttoned it to reveal my own fossil fragment, a branch coral concretion, tiny sparkling crystals, silver-strung now about my neck, hanging plumb above this poem. I would sometimes go to Applegarth just to schmooze with the two Mikes, Mike Niederman and Mike Hannay, and see Jean Mackay and whoever else was there. And I arrived one day, and I think it was Jill Jameson who said, "Well, if you're here, why don't you do something?" And I said, "What would you like me to do?" And she said, "You can type these various poems for the upcoming Applegarth Folly." And there I was. You know, not being a touch typist, I had to agonize so that I wouldn't make a mistake. And I finished Aroha's Fossil, and I had just done laundry, and I had a shirt with, now they don't have pockets very much anymore. Then, not only a pocket, but a button on it. And I had put this fossil in that pocket, but buttoned it and forgot about it until typing her poem. She was singular, and I miss her greatly. Thanks, everybody.
Wow, astonishing. Thank you so much, John. Jordan, where are you? There you are. Good to see you. Let me introduce you. Jordan Williamson is a poet from London, Ontario. His recent work has featured or is forthcoming from Contemporary Verse 2, Grain, and Prism International. His debut chapbook, Love's Little Dojo, is available now from Pinhole Poetry. My pleasure to welcome Jordan Williamson.
Thank you. The first time I actually read poetry publicly was in this space, in this room. I want to say it was 2012, and it was an Antler River, at Poetry London at the time, event, and it was. I was at the workshop beforehand, and I actually ended up reading for the opening of that evening, and it was Paul Vermeersch, Karen Solie, and Colleen Thibaudeau. So I actually had the pleasure of reading with Colleen, and it's been all downhill from there for me. But I'm really delighted to be here. Colleen is a poet that I've admired for ages. I was almost asked Jenny when she had mentioned the reading tonight if somebody had told her ahead of time what a fan of Colleen's I was, and she said, no, this is just a happy coincidence. So I'm going to read from also the chapbook 10 letters. I'm going to read letter 1, which if you saw the lecture on the weekend at the library that Peggy did, it was really, really good. It was really informative, and I think it's up on WordFest's YouTube page now. So I saw that come up the other day. So if you want to see it in its entirety, that's where it is. Letter 1 was a poem that in the lecture Peggy was coming back to constantly as something of a sort of literary theory. It's what Colleen based a lot of her future work on, and it featured regularly in that. So I thought it would be important to read in that it provides some context in terms of what Colleen was doing with her poetry and how wonderfully she achieved it. So letter 1, it's a poem that not only highlights Colleen's signature voice, but is an example of a kind of ars poetica, outlining her literary philosophy more broadly, setting up superstructures, archetypal themes, and metaphors common throughout classical art and literature, then updating and contrasting and decorating those themes and metaphors with subjective leaps of imagination, the novelty of everyday materials and lived experience, hyperlocality, and homage to contemporary art and culture. My appreciation for Colleen and her poetry, more than anything else, stems from her being a life-affirming poet. Family and community were important to her. She was more Whitman Williams than Eliot Pound in that respect, in terms of her sort of positivity and the way that she approached her poetics. She was not afraid to be original, never self-conscious about where she came from or who she was. Colleen's work would be just as well received today as it was then, and probably even more so. There's something that is very strikingly contemporary about a lot of her work, and as somebody who's sort of in the literary space in 2025, I can say that it sort of has a really big impact on me, and I can see that sort of vein run through other poets and work that's being published currently. So I'm going to read 10 letters now. I just found out this is a first edition that I found at Attic Books a few years back. So it's not the brick version. It's from 1975. There's also, funnily enough, maybe one of your fellow classmates, there's a memo in here from Western University in 1978. Whoever was writing their master's thesis was having their oral examination rescheduled. So it's got the room, and it's an actual memo. So that's a very nice memory. So now I will read from letter 1. Nobody knows where I'm buried, and nobody knows whether our experience levers really human experience. So fall back on somebody else with a heart sweet and easily readable. Someone in a picture, for instance, wearing turn of the century, Liberty lawn fading to lavender, hair pinned in a quick bun. She is always on that balcony overlooking the harbor. It is always morning, and she is always saying goodbye, very tenderly and slowly, to someone who is up early and tending a sail toward daybreak. Is this what I mean by experience levering? Should I run up a little superstructure of sorts? But then Ariadne was plumper, wasn't she? Penelope Marthing away on her shuttle. Miss Polyphemus too bent on her kettle of plantain eye plasters and little leech garden. Dido too weepy in her leopard skin. Some of these days they'll be handing out sheet metal handkerchiefs. That's not the ending, though. I want her on my tombstone, waving at the waves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I love this theme of coincidences that's emerging, tingling with meaning. No pressure to all of you to have a meaningful coincidence involving Colleen Thibaudeau. Karen Schindler, where are you? There we're going to introduce you. Karen Schindler is the founder of Baseline Press, publishing Canadian poets since 2011. She previously worked as an engineer, high school teacher, and director of Antler River Poetry reading series. In 2023, Gasborough Press published her first chapbook of poems, The Sad Truth. Please welcome Karen to the stage.
Thanks, Misha. I'm going to read 2 short poems of Colleen's, if I may. And I wanted to start first by saying a few words about Colleen's involvement with the Antler River reading series, which was Poetry London at the time. And this is a different event, I believe, than what you mentioned, Jordan. This was reading in 2009 when she read with Evelyn Perry. The only reason that Colleen was a featured reader that year is because of Carolyn Doyle, who had the idea to invite her. Carolyn Doyle was the head librarian here at Landon at that time and co-founder of Poetry London, part of the committee. And when we sat down earlier that year to plan the season, Carolyn suggested that we ask Colleen. Colleen was 83 that year, and she wasn't really known for doing readings at that point, but Carolyn's thought was we had nothing to lose in asking, and wouldn't it be amazing if Colleen said yes? And so Carolyn extended the invitation and did the follow-up from that invitation. I think Carolyn knew this at the time, but I learned very quickly that any negotiation with Colleen inevitably involved invitations to her home and handwritten letters. So Colleen read for Poetry London on September 30th, 2009. It was an exceptional evening. Colleen was creative and funny, and so very generous with her poetry and her energy. And Evelyn Perry, who read with her, is a Toronto poet and theater creative. So the two of them were excellent pairing, and it remained a highlight from those early years of Poetry London. Colleen passed away just over 2 years later, and that spring of 2012, Poetry London, in partnership with the Public Library and Brick Books, got together to put up a Poetry Month billboard in Colleen's honor. And that project was the idea of Christine Wald, another committee member. And Christine's vision was basically just a giant reproduction of Colleen's well-loved poem, Balloon. And the billboard was the one just down the street at the end of Wortley Road where it meets Stanley Street. We had a launch event that involved music and lemonade and, of course, balloons. And the billboard was up for the month of April for Poetry Month. And this is the flyer that Christine made up to advertise the event and and Colleen's poem. And I had it framed and hung it in my front hall. So I look at this little poem literally every day. And I'm going to read it. And I think many of you got the postcard handout on your way in. So I'd love it if people read along with me. And I should mention, too, that this was originally published in the Book of Shape Poetry Lozenges, which was so beautifully republished this year for the celebration of Colleen this year by Hilary Neary. So this is Balloon. As big as ball, as round as sun, I tug and pull you when you run. And when wind blows, I say politely, hold me tightly. And then I'll follow Jordan's lead. I'd like to read my favorite poem from the 10 Letters chapbook. This poem, the first time I read it, it must have been in an anthology, I believe. It wasn't in the chapbook. I didn't know Colleen's name at the time. It was when I was just falling into poetry and trying to figure out how poetry worked. And this 12-line poem really struck me. I thought I'd figured something out, that to write a poem, you just need to take a very small moment, in this case also a very small space, and write it down. And then there was my subsequent realization that simplicity is a bit of a lie, the beautiful lie of a perfect poem. This is letter 8. Place was that piece of ground between house and swing, yielding to the foot, covered with reddened strawberry leaves and that small vine that isn't wintergreen. Among the cedars, some of them struggling still like old limbo dancers, covered with a lighter green lichen. There, on the day that William Faulkner died, I came and stood. And even if I had not willed it so, down my head would have gone, thinking definitely about something. God, how I love this little part of ground.
Karen, is the beautiful lie of a perfect poem a quote from anything? Is it the title of a poem? Is it something? Well, it ought to be.
Aaron Schindler.
Who's gonna steal it first? That's the raffle of the night. Next is Nancy Tausky, but sadly Nancy couldn't be with us in person today, and so the wonderful Jennifer Wenn will be reading on Nancy's behalf. That said, for those of us who don't know Nancy, an introduction. Nancy Tausky taught Old and Middle English at Western University. A well-known expert in heritage architecture, she has contributed to many heritage assessments and reports, and is co-author of Victorian Architecture in London and Southwestern Ontario, Symbols and Aspiration, and author of Historical Sketches of London from Site to City. Please welcome Jennifer Wenn on behalf of Nancy.
Thank you. As mentioned, I'm here to do a little bit of pinch hitting. I'm reading a poem from the Artemisia book, and I didn't know this particular piece until I got an email very late afternoon from Roy saying, please, can you do this? But I found it very striking. I'll say more about it after I'm finished reading it. It's just called simply Poem. I do not want only the shy child with the shock of slippery, wheat-like hair, standing alone after her first communion by the white picket fence. She is light and airy. She is for once still and stilled her shrill voice. She is like a beefy window curtain or a lacy Bruegel, and must be trained in the right way, lest she twist and turn like a very poem. I want the others too. I want the baby and he who sits under the hollyhocks is behind the exact same shade as the purple king hollyhock at the very top. I want too the neighbor looking over with a leer at the big sister got up to look like Rita Hayworth, white as in a restaurant. I want the young socialist on the corner with his cough. I want the mother, though they tell me she lies in the churchyard that is halfway up Montreal Mountain. I want the man who sits on the steps of the Mayfair Washing Machine Company this morning and every morning, wearing a dirty hockey sweater and holding his head in his hands. And I too, after adjusting the focus, I shall go just as natural among them all. Why must the lover and the sufferer be out? I do not want the shy child only, aloof for 1 minute of her life. I want it to be like a lacy Bruegel. So that's the poem. Now, I have some notes I'll read from some notes that Nancy sent in. I was first, irritated by poem many decades ago because my collection of photographs consisted mainly of the kind posed and restricted photographs emphatically rejected in poems' opening lines. As I matured, though the increasingly challenging images of the first stanza, concisely illustrating the poet's widening viewpoint, both led and paralleled my increasingly emphatic view of humanity and of the rightful subject matter of poetry. The element of the poem I find most startling and provocative, though, is the phrase lacy Bruegel, first used to describe the innocent first communicant, and then the photograph/poem as a whole. In its first appearance, the phrase seems fairly straightforward and less unflattering than the preceding line, the new communicant is like a beefy window curtain. Apparently, the girl with the golden hair is also somewhat stout, like so many of the figures in the paintings of Pieter Bruegel the Elder. But the lacy Bruegel of the final line describes the photographer's ideal achievement. Her poem is to be as inclusive as a painting by Pieter Bruegel the Elder with its masses of busy subjects, but also lacy. I've struggled with this word. Does it perhaps refer to the carefully used plethora of poetic devices in this poem? The poet/photographer did, after all, need to adjust the focus before stepping just as naturally among them all. A phrase, like most in the poem, replete with various kinds of sound repetitions and a thoroughly tantalizing visual image. So those are some wonderful notes by Nancy. I'll just add from my own simplistic point of view, what struck me about it was accepting or maybe embracing all of life, including the messy and challenging bits, and bringing them into your poetry and including them too. That was, if I was to encapsulate it, that was what struck me. And certainly the need to bring difficult things into poetry. Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's Jennifer Wenn reading and relating to a poem she just met this afternoon as though they've known one another for years. That is you, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Right on. And Roy, please pass along our thanks to Nancy for her lovely notes and choice of poem. Right on. Next, we have Jenny Berkel. May I introduce you, Jenny? Thank you. Jenny Berkel is a poet and singer-songwriter from rural Ontario, currently residing in London Township, Treaty 6 territory, where she owns a small bookshop, Little Wren Books. Wink. She has released 3 albums, and her debut chapbook, Grease Dogs, was published with Baseline Press. Her poems have appeared in Grain, Vallum, Riddlefence, the Thames Review, the Maynard, the Literary Review, and Long Con Magazine, amongst others. Please welcome Jenny.
Thank you, Misha. So I think I'm here tonight as the only person who is completely new to Colleen's work. When I got the email that Roy sent out, must have been maybe in September, something like that. And something compelled me to say yes to reading a poem for this night. And I feel shocked, quite frankly, that I wasn't familiar with her work before this fall. Her poems are exactly the kind of poetry that I love. They're very strange. Like Jordan said, they do feel contemporary. I think I described it to Roy when you popped into the shop one time as feeling really ahead of their time in a way, but they also do feel just completely loosened from time, I think. And yeah, they're strange and startling. And just listening to everybody else who's read so far, those are all poems that I read as I was searching for my one perfect poem to read. And hearing them read out loud, the music of these poems is also just really remarkable and also strange. Like there's a strange musicality to it. So I'm sad that I wasn't more familiar with her work, but I'm also excited because it means I have a whole bunch of amazing poetry to become more familiar with and to fall more in love with. Now, Roy knows that it took me a very long time to decide which poem I would be reading. In fact, I think it was 2 days ago that I sent him my selection. And so when Roy asked me when I got the email about this, I said yes. And I have a toddler. Anybody who knows me knows about my toddler. And I run this bookshop, and I feel like I've been in this completely frenzied, harried sort of place where I'm just running around in a frazzle. And so I said yes, I would read this poem, and then I just couldn't find the time to spend the time with these poems that I wanted to spend with them. So I was working my way slowly through these poems and looking for that one right poem. And I had a few flagged, and I completely ignored the email where everybody else had already chosen their poems. And so I looked at the email again, and I was like, oh, well, they're all chosen already, those ones that I had flagged. So I kept reading. And then I came across this poem. I mean, it was just a few days ago, finally, towards the end of the book. And it felt really perfect for me to read because of how frazzled I felt in sort of trying to decide which poem to read. This just felt really appropriate. It's a poem about listening, and it's a poem about being intentional and present. So I'm going to read it. Listening in together. It's a very thick atmosphere this night. It's a dark chocolate cake of a night. It's so dark out there you couldn't find a lost friend if you had lost one. I've run out, the kitchen radio on a tenuous black thread of extensions. Now it's playing Beethoven, something I don't know. I am preoccupied finding my book, switching on the porch light, getting the couch cushions arranged just right. Once lying down, my eyes are on the silver body, fat, determined music treader of a most ordinary moth. Level with my face, he starts his climb, slow keeping time, and a far more dedicated listener than I. His thin legs delicately cling to the screening, perfectly listening, perfectly moving upward. Entranced together, up we move with the music, moth and I, concentrating as if we were present at the original composition, determined to see it through. And he does reach the screen top, balances, stays as the radio plays on. Listening in together, the back porch light, the one star in the very thick atmosphere this night. It's a dark chocolate cake of a night. It's so dark out there you couldn't find a lost friend if you had lost one. Before I fall asleep, I think my music treader sends me a message about a lost friend. I see again the beautiful Luna sipping at the sugar water we left set out summer nights on the bedroom window ledge. Chocolate cake of a night?
Thank you so much, Jenny. Does anyone in here feel the good kind of jealous that Jenny is getting to discover Colleen for the first time at this point in her life? Yeah, some nods. Patricia Black was going to join us tonight, but she had to send her regrets. But we are very, very lucky to have Peggy Roffey, where are you? Oh, there you are, in her stead. Peggy, Roy's wife. I asked Peggy for a few biographical bullet points. She said, Roy's wife. I did my master's on Colleen Thibaudeau at Western. And then she said, I studied leadership, but when I asked Roy for elaboration, Roy said, she invented it. So they can work that out. In the meantime, we get to hear a reading from Peggy. Peggy, come on up.
Thank you, Michelle. You started it. Actually, I'm reading on behalf of Patricia Black, who is not well. She read at the Colleening lecture on Saturday at the Central Library with the most beautiful poetry reading voice I have heard. She is herself a poet. She was a reviewer of drama for Scene magazine. She is 89 years old, and she could be 35 with her love of life. So I regret that she's not here, and I'm glad to read for her. She chose, in which I become confused, the end of the world being imminent. They say the world's near ending, and this confuses me. I have a mad desire to try on everything in Eaton's. I rush there as fast as I can pick my way through the rubble. Far away on another street, the buses are still running. Eaton's has lost part of its roof, but the escalators still bear us upward. Passing me going down is the wife of the president of the university. She nods encouragement to my smiling mouth, shaped into hats, to my round O's of eyes. The staff is putting all to rights, though a stiff breeze from the roof area nullifies their efforts. Blouses move on the racks like sailing ships eager to leave port. In the shoe department, a clog dance. They are thinking in promotions, thinking. Soon there will be a special, the super end of the world special. I hope it won't get going till I finish my shopping. Was that what I came for? Shopping? The pink orange neon of a truly beautiful sunset pervades the lingerie department. I dart among the shoppers. We seem happy to be there. There's no coffee. They have no water. I hear a slightly familiar voice saying as I enter the cafeteria, they have Coke. With Coke and biscuits and cheese, I too am quite contented. I puzzle about where the voice belongs in my past. Just trying to fit a face to the voice will keep me occupied. for quite some time. That's the poem. And that is so Colleen's voice. End of the world, time to smile. She just doesn't agonize. She has a broad, broad vision of going beyond time. Patricia writes, I shall forever have the image in my mind of dear Colleen sailing up the elevator at Eaton's, hair flying in the breeze, talking to anyone who would listen. It also reminds me, writes Patricia, of once going to the Eaton's cafeteria and ordering meatball soup. The server dropped 3 meatballs in my soup and then took 1 back. Thank you, Colleen, again for delighting us.
Thank you so much, Peggy. And if I may, I would like to read just a line from Patricia's bio. The wear and tear of age has only expanded her inner life and her readiness to reach out to others in care and delight. So with one sentence from Patricia, I think we feel her care and delight. So pass that along, Roy, please. It's my honor to next introduce David White. David White is the author of 2 critically acclaimed books of poetry, The Lark Ascending and Local Haunts, both edited by the late Stan Dragland. David taught theater history and writing at Fanshawe College for 20 years. He lives in Wortley Village in Old South London, Ontario. Please welcome David.
All right, I'm going to be reading 2 poems, not because I wanted to read 2 poems. I was writing a poem, thinking about Colleen and knowing Colleen and Jamie and what stands in my mind most is I was at one point working for James Reaney and Colleen for some reason had to call me at home. And since when you're working in these, small theater projects, there's not enough money to pay the rent. So I was living with my parents, and Colleen called me. I forget completely why now. And my mother answered the phone first, and she was on the phone quite a while with Colleen before she even passed it on to me. And after I finished and I forget what I was talking or what I was being asked for then, but my mother's only response was, "Who was that person?" And then I had to answer it. How do you explain that? So I was why I'm reading 2 poems is because, well, I have to also explain a bit that when I started at Western, I was basically a drama theater student, first of all. And my first year professor was one Maureen Fox. And she was outraged that none of us knew that James Reaney's play, Sticks and Stones, the first of the Donnelly trilogy, was premiering that, and she gave us half of the lecture about how we should go and support drama and poetic drama and all the. So I thought, well, this sounds pretty interesting. So, but all of his biographies would say at the end of it, he is married to the poet Colleen Thibaudeau. So I would look around for books by Colleen Thibaudeau, but this was like 1973, and it wasn't until 1975 that, the 10 Letters came out, and I got that one. And then my granddaughters came out, and I bought that one at a store, a bookstore. Well, it was part bookstore, and it also sold ballet stuff, and it's now sells bathing suits, I think. And inside of it, it wasn't signed by Colleen, but inside of it was a bookmark that had the list for that year's writers and writers series at Fanshawe College. And on the back of it, Colleen had written in the corrections to some errors in the volume in there. Little did I know I was going to be teaching at Fanshawe or even participating in the when Roy was, no, you'd left. It was after that. I actually participated in this, the writers in series at Fanshawe. So I just wanted to go with what I thought, about Colleen's, for the particular incident I was going after to write about concerning my mother because of that connection. And so I thought I was just using one poem. But turned out I was actually using, when I went to look for them after I'd written it, it turns out I was using two poems. Like I couldn't just restrict myself to one influence. So, and I have the Martha Landscapes edition of it. It's also in the Artemisia book, but there's another poem in between them in the Artemisia. And this, I was looking for the poems and I thought, oh, that's a poem. Oh, and there's the poem. So that the two poems are side by side. And here they are. The Glass Cupboard. Lights from the highway, sparser, softer now. And the gorse lights gone and their house gone away. Just lost rib to new life in dark seas. Just dark seven sleepers gone seas about the foot of our hill. Just the foot of the hill and the great cave opening up. Lights from the glass cupboard spark, the house dark, and it's up to the glass cupboard now. It looms at James's headlight. 3 paces from the kitchen sink, 1 from table, length appropriately my arm span, crafted by an Albertan who loved the bush, the hills. The Bay Highway kindles to the blue Italian grotto glasses and green glasses, safe and wide as Sweden, and cheap little ruby liqueurs sing, and cocktail Libby's supermart, a violent and fresh from fists that swing axes, pounded down a territory, and rolled Malcolm Lowry into the sound-mad surf, dazzling no warning. By an Albertan who loved the bush, the hills, who made the cupboard arc that tends the tides of dream. They light, they guard the house, glory like an icon of Mike Todd, 30 odd glasses, touched off by random headlights, moving toward the bay. My grandmother's sugar shell, Ontario Baroque. My grandmother's sugar shell, spoon, Ontario Baroque, has just fallen out of the unclean silver bag. What does it mean, I wonder? One day only I saw her stop work. We lay out on the grass by the highway, under the big maple, and 2 cars went by toward Owen Sound. When she heard their car coming for dinner, she got up, a big woman with Scottish shoulders, built too heavy on the top like all the Stewarts, her leg bones stilt-like in proportion to the square rest of her. And she rose all of a piece. I remember that she rose up somehow straight and not hinging her knees, nor using her hands, nor her elbows, nor leaning her head forward, so that she was the reverse of a tree falling before a quick gust. That is, she rose up on a slant as if the pulleys or attached to her everywhere, or as if the kitchen wood stove were a magnet that suddenly drew her inside. 1 minute she was all green and gold lying there dappled. The next she was halfway up the lawn and in motion over the steps. The door opened magically and she disappeared. She would never wonder about anything, just say, that spoon needs cleaning. And that I think it means she needs remembering. So, my mother was kind of Southwesto Gothic in one of those characters in who's sick a lot, and there were reasons for that. And she died when she was it was 4 days before her 59th birthday, and she chain smoked all of her life. And one of the things that struck me in going to the Reaney household was there would be these ashtrays all there, many ashtrays on the fire in front of the fireplace. And I thought, well, that's really kind of interesting. And I was a smoker at the time, but anyways. So with thinking about Colleen, I ended up writing this and not realizing that I was actually thinking about two poems at the same time. Cut Glass, after Colleen Thibaudeau. A jostling of crystal in the glass cupboard, a ringing, a humming, a finger invokes on the rim, running around and around, remembering. My fingers too unsteady then, to hold the liquid dose of morphine steadily on the spoon when the pain broke through as the cancer grew and grew, asserting its inoperable cells. And the liqueur glass, meant for other occasions, provoked a smile to defeat the pain in that moment of my mother's dying, slowly, in those last months when I suspended writing my dissertation, and the cost of that delay weighed on my subsequent career. The words my supervisor uttered when I told him that my mother had died. Good, now you can get back to work. And I think of her lips on the crystal, and her smile at the act of celebration, in spite of the pain, even though now, remembering, I'm over a dozen years older than she would ever be. Thank you.
Oh, David, what a reading and what a remembrance. Thank you very much for that. After corresponding for a couple of days on Instagram with Penn Kemp, it is my pleasure to be face-to-face with her tonight. Let me introduce this legendary reader. Poet, activist, and playwright Penn Kemp has been celebrated as a trailblazer since her first publication of poetry in 1972, and here at the library in the 2018 Women Trailblazer series. The League of Canadian Poets honored her with the inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award in 2025, Spoken Word Artist of the Year, and as a foremother of Canadian poetry. With 33 books published, Penn is active across the web and the London poetry community. My pleasure to introduce Penn Kemp to the stage.
Thank you, Misha, and what a pleasure to be here. What a treat to celebrate Colleen. I'm going to read a poem from Four Women, which Red Kite Press published, and It is for women, which included Colleen and me, in which I decide to look once more at the letter in CV2 to Penn Kemp, thinking it may be time for a bit of a bio. My brother and I were children already in the Great Depression, while my sister was a baby in the midst of it. My dad getting the job teaching French in St. Thomas, money again. New boughten items were added to my wardrobe. The particularly jumbo knit of the jumbo knit cardigan from the monarch knit down the street, which my Ulster mother deemed the correct thing to wear in the Armistice Day parade down Talbot Street. Also, a grass green coat with matching hat. I managed to roll down muddy hills in the athletic park after Sunday school while wearing it. Soon we went back to the handmaids and heavy-hemmed and much let out. It was a treat to be wearing what we had worn in the snows of Grey County. It comforted the terrible feeling that in coming to the South, we had not only left behind the family, the farm, and the bush, but were doomed to live forever with strangers and bad water and bad air, says my brother. I had been, before coming back to London 25 years ago, I had been writer-in-residence in Grey County, so we had many cups of tea over that one. And this is a poem I wrote for Colleen that's in a new chapbook called Lives of Dead Poets. Social justice recounted, re-storied. She accumulated tales to blow them out as smoke ring, leading you through her long alliterative spring garden. She invited you to dance with words. Her card was full, droll, a wit, not acerbic, but trolling for pertinent phrase. Language tripped slyly over the page in play of possible, not settled, but including errant sound, all probable puns. Her genes are storytellers, Acadian and Irish, shaped new to be all the more accurately embellished with that gift for Capricorn lateral leap across lacunae, incomprehensible, till the story revealed itself so far, the scene laid out clearly. When home could include everything, how would you not describe in glorious detail each strand of whole? Circuitous, led straight to the point, a maypole of ribbon encircling the sun, a sequence as consequential as spoken history. Remember who was where and when and why. What did happen? A matrilineage of friend and family lore, never to be forgotten but transformed. In each telling, the tale coiled round itself till springing straight, a recall to tell the midden of memory reminded. She invited us in with an easy laugh and watchful eye, while she would embroider without rancor bleak rock of Grey County or green Elgin, brushing hair away, more to tell from inexhaustible well, sea green eyes in an Irish face observed, not judging but bird-like, apt to leap upon the treasure of salient particularity. Stories sped through alternative universe, spiraled beyond galactic connection to return, spangled in original dress back home, where we, the recipients of kindness, would drink tea. In the smoke of ancestral eons, poets and peers, she reclaims tales out of school, the revered Nori Fry or Macpherson J., out of university corridors into her bright spring garden. That poem was my attempt to capture Colleen's Celtic spiral.
Thank you so much, Penn. What a meditative reading. Concluding our evening tonight, our very special guests, James Stewart Reaney and Susan Wallace. Retired teacher Susan and retired journalist James are honored to be part of this evening devoted to the words and life of Colleen Thibaudeau, James' late mother, and we are so honored to have you. Susan and James met as MA English students at McMaster University in the 1970s, and almost 50 years later are helping steer Colleening 2025, the year-long celebration of our greatest poet centenary. Please join me in welcoming James and Susan.
I'll scuttle up here first. I just want to say first, please join me in expressing thanks and wonder to Antler River Poetry and all the readers. And what a great night. How should we do this? Because I didn't want to talk. Well, the poem, I should say this poem that we're going to read, this is its third iteration.
And we're getting better.
Hey, well, you were perfect to begin with, and I'm slow. But do you want to talk about the poem? Yeah, you talk about
We were talking about coincidences in poetry.
We were all.
And, sorry. Yeah, microphone. I'm a teacher, so I'm used to yelling.
Pardon me?
Anyway, we were talking earlier about coincidences, and there were coincidences today. You know, one of them was David White, I think, wearing the Port Stanley T-shirt, and that our poem is about Port Stanley.
Yeah.
And another one, an earlier poet who talked about waves. I think it was the first reader, but anyway. So waves are in our poem too, or I should say Colleen's poem. And then it just so happened that James brought me the Londoner from the mailroom, and this poem, Gigi and Elizabeth at Port, is about waves. So they love watching them. So I'll pass that around. And
can I just mention in another coincidence, this is by a wonderful photograph by my former colleague, and I think we have, did anybody here ever work for the London Free Press? I think this, Barb Taylor was a wonderful supervisor and mentor to me when we were there, but Mike Henson is we were former colleagues of his, and he's still, I think if you look at the Free Press every day, there are two great photographers, Derek Rattan and Mike, doing it every day in circumstances that can, what's the euphemism we always say, challenging? That's where you have more challenge. Yeah, it's a challenge. But here.
So that's just to pass around. And then this is a picture that I took of the poem is about our daughter, Elizabeth. And she and her great-grandmother, who is Colleen's mother. And I will pass this around because it's a picture I took, I think it was 39 years ago.
Yeah. 1986, we're pretty sure.
Yeah. Elizabeth was 4, and her great-grandmother was about 82, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll pass this around, turn it back and forth, and as you look at it, you can see what the poem's about. Fort Stanley.
Maybe I'll talk a little bit about some other things if you want to add more.
You do say a lot.
Well, I'm just warming up, dear. No, I wanted to talk a little bit about, first, at the back, Josh Lembier has been with, and the Lord's. And actually, it ties in with John Tyndall, because John was one of the first people we called when we were thinking about, we'd like to do something about Mom's centenary. It's 2025, she would have been 100 on December 29th. So we were thinking about this very loosely in sometime late in 2024. And because of the Sou'westo Voices, Mom is on that. And it's just The Blue of the Swimming Pool, I think is the poem that's on there. And Josh was able to put that on the Words Festival YouTube on December 28th, 2024. So we got just a bit of a jump start and Josh has been putting amazing things from the Words Festival, can I say catalog? Is that the songbook? Whatever the right, to do with Colleen Thibaudeau. And we've been adding some sort of guerrilla, the streets of St. Thomas, Steve Peters, the former mayor of St. Thomas, reading the tin shop out in front of the tin shop, which he now owns. We had a video of that. We also, the big projects we were hoping for were to find some way to revisit lozenges, which was my mom's first collection. And I will say this, if you're a reader tonight and do not have your copy of lozenges, please come up. We have one, and then Hilary Neary and Mike Baker and Stephen Sword took on that project. The most sweltery press in Ontario is Old Forge and Anvil in Sparta in Elgin County. They finished it there. They finished it just in time for the reading. And this was another project we had, which was a hope that there could be a reading in St. Thomas, where Mom grew up. And you've heard a little bit about St. Thomas and Julie Berry took on that project. And the mayor of St. Thomas, between bringing huge factories to St. Thomas, took the time. He opened the reading with a poem of Mom's, and he stayed for the whole event, which was, to me, is extraordinary. It was just, I don't think he particularly knew about Colleen Thibaudeau, but he, out of respect and admiration for the fellow readers and the poems he was going to hear, and that was in the Elgin County Railway Museum, spectacular place. We took, Colleening was the title of, you can maybe take over this part, the Albago Route connection, because you were there
For
Albago Route gave us the word Colleening.
Well, that was for Margaret Avison. When she came to visit, she coined that term because Colleen, I thought this was amazing. She would call a taxi and then have about 7 different things that she wanted to go to get or shop for groceries or whatever. And so the taxi would go take her to all these places, and that was Colleening.
Yeah.
And Adam Hollowitz, Corrigan Hollowitz, actually, we talked about it, and he got this play together. The second one that we just saw was even better than the first, so they've really polished it. And it was just a really good experience to go to that play and see what they could do, with my mother-in-law's words. It was quite extraordinary.
I still got more.
Oh, he does talk a lot.
Well, this will be the last chance. See, this is my last, sort of Colleening 2025, and I won't take a vow of silence ever because it would be a bad thing. But no, and then we had, of course, we were moving along. I'm going to miss some things, but I want to mention, if you wanted to learn more, my sister, Susan Reaney, keeps ColleenThibaudeau.com as a website. And that's, if you're just finding out, or if you would like to find out more, that is the place to look. The Words Festival has a tremendous resource. The London Public Library has a lot of books of hers, but they're reference copies we found out during Peggy's wonderful lecture on. We wanted to make sure that the lecture devoted to James. It's called the James Reaney Memorial Lecture, but this year it was going to be about Mum. We knew that, and then Peggy and her colleagues did a wonderful job on Saturday, and that brings us here, I think, to. And I want one more thing. Have you seen this?
That's for Helmut Becker, right? Who made his own paper and printed Colleen's poem about dandelions becoming paper. So it's quite beautiful.
And that brings us to this night, which was the finale of, as far as we know, the finale of the live component. But I think, Josh, the plan is, this isn't a live stream, but at some point fairly soon at the Words Festival YouTube channel, this will emerge and take over the internet as soon as possible. But that's out there as well. But that's why and coming up to December 29th, if you thinking about my mother on December 29th, when she would have been 100, I feel all the way through the year I've been feeling her presence because of you great people who are part of this. And it's a thrill to end up, because this would have been our neighborhood library when we first moved to London and lived on Craig Street for a couple of years. And now, I think I've exhausted all.
No, you're still on.
I'm still on. Well,
you can begin.
I can begin. I could talk about Mackey's. Well, maybe. But there are 4 generations in this poem. There's Mum's mother, the formidable and wonderful Alice Price Thibaudeau, who came over to Canada in 1924 from Belfast. And we think she must have been corresponding. They'd met during the First World War with my grandfather, Mum's dad, Stewart Reaney, because they were married soon, and Mum came along in December 29th, 1925. So obviously, when Grandma arrived, she said she was coming to settle in Canada. Well, I think it was more complicated than that, but so she's one of the characters. Our daughter, as a 4-year-old, is a character, and my mum she's the narrator recording it. And I think you and I are probably off stage taking pictures and enjoying the Mackey's Fair off to one side. And of course, it's in Port Stanley, which I think the vernacular is port. That's what, if you say port, you don't say Port Stanley, you say port. So, Gigi and Elizabeth at port. Elizabeth, 4, would fete Mackey's 75th anniversary just as often as the car would get there.
Her Gigi, great-grandmother, also favors Mackey's, especially the specialty sauce on chips.
In sunlight, sharp as Mackey's orange, they sit together. 80 years seems not to separate, for both love waves, love water.
I could look forever, couldn't you?
That Sunday, though, their eyes harden, for the waves are black, flung up cold, dredged from the lake bottom.
It's as if beasts are leaping out of the foam.
Gigi shivers.
Elizabeth only, let's go home.
And that's it. So that's the finale. Fantastic friends for being with us. Thank you. And if you were a reader and don't have a lozenges, let me know. We have
They're right here.
We started with 100 and we have a few. But it's been great to get them away. And Hillary Neary says she absolutely will not do it again. But we think we might for 2026. We have another centenary coming up. And we could legitimately say, well, wasn't this set on a press that, the centenary was, so we might, but I haven't found anybody willing to take it on yet, but maybe there might be somebody out there. Somebody here knows how to set type? Have we got a book for you?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This was really a lovely finale for Peggy and Roy. Just great.
And Misha, you are a model for MCs in in London anywhere. I got a trivia question just because to do with Nancy Tausky. Which Polaris Music Prize and Juno winner grew up next door, or spent, early years next door to the Tauskys, and was a great friend of their son David's? Garth Hudson's always Garth Hudson's the right answer to any question about London music. Well, it's Dan Snaith from, if you know Caribou, who are superstars all around the world. Dan, they didn't stay long in London from Dan's point of view, but yeah, that right next door to the Tauskys was where Dan Snaith grew up, I believe. So I wanted to work that in. And getting Garth Hudson mentioned is another Broughdale genius.
That's lots of words.
That's lots of words. Thanks, friends.
Just take a moment to hold up the lozenges that he's referring to. And also, we've got copies of Balloon printed here. And I think that there's some, for anyone who might want some, there was a big stack at the start of the night. Thank you once again to all of our wonderful readers. Antler River Poetry resumes on January 21st. And on December 29th, consider lighting a candle for Colleen. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.